off what? It staves off the contradiction that comes out of a system like this, which juxtaposes the mass of people against the rich and the corporations. But as the debts grow, a problem develops. It turns out that the solution to a problem always begets a new problem. This is something which that funny old German philosopher Hegel worked out a long time ago. Marx borrowed, and modern philosophy works real hard to forget. Here's the problem. Eventually, the borrowing of the cities and states gets to be so high that the interest cost that the community has to pay to the bondholders means that they don't have much money left for the services to provide people. Borrowing more won't really solve the problem, because that is the problem. We owe too much. Then the postponed contradiction, might even call it, I don't know, the class struggle, returns with a vengeance. And that's where we are. All the cities and towns were plunged into a problem with this crisis. Suddenly the revenue flowing into them collapsed. Millions of people unemployed, they don't pay income tax. Millions of people losing their homes and their jobs, they don't buy so much, so the sales tax revenue goes down. So everywhere, suddenly, having built up these debts over years, what? The cities and towns are all confronted with the interest they have to keep paying on all the borrowing they've done, but the revenue coming in to pay that has collapsed. Crisis time. What could they do now? Here's a simple answer. They could finally go and tax the rich and the corporations who they postponed taxing to get us this problem. They could do it. The wealth is there. It's gone untaxed. It would allow us to do all the things every city and state government in this country, including the federal, needs to do. There's no shortage of money. There's no technical problem here. There's only a political problem, which begins by having to understand what I just said. So I'm going to conclude by reminding you, since several of you emailed me, Barbara, you even asked me when I first did it, a little piece of research I did. That was 3 months earlier. The research. Remember I told you, for those of you that were here once before, and this is the last thing. Merrill Lynch does research every year. It measures a very special group of Americans. And if you're not familiar with them, I'm proud to be able to introduce them to you. They are called HNWIs. I can see from your faces, not a term you're very familiar with. What's an HNWI? A high net worth individual. Your lack of familiarity suggests you are not one of them. Don't take it personally. What is a high net worth individual? That is an individual who possesses a stock and bond portfolio of at least $1 million or more. That is, in other words, we don't count whether you own your own home or your car or your personal possessions. You only are a high net worth individual if you have a stock and bond portfolio of $1 million or more. If you're really blessed by whatever blessedness, then you are an ultra high net worth individual, and that means you have 30 million or more in your portfolio. Merrill Lynch keeps very close track of these people. You can never guess why. Because that's who their customers are. That is, of the wealth management department. That's not the part of Merrill Lynch that you see at the train station or on 6th Avenue. That's for you. I'm talking about the wealth management department. What you have does not count as wealth. Again, don't take this personally. So they do the measurement. And I study this sort of thing. I'm an economist. I'm supposed to know how to do it. And here's what I discovered. There are about 2.7, 2.8 million of those in the United States, high net worth individuals. Little less than 1% of the American people are in this nice group. And together, their total portfolios, not counting their homes, or their cars, or their art collections, or anything like that. But just their stocks and bonds, $12.5 trillion. When I looked, it's a bit higher now, maybe about 14 trillion. And then I did the following little calculation that you can all enjoy with me. I said, what was the total deficit of the United States, not the cities and states, the federal government, in the last full year, 2009? It was about, I don't remember the exact number, 1.5 trillion, 1.4 trillion, something like that. So I said to myself, suppose we put a 10% tax for 1 year on these portfolios. That would leave them with 90% of their stock and bond portfolio, not too shabby. Wouldn't touch their home, their art collection, their vodka collection, whatever. Just take 10% of their portfolios. It would have netted to the federal government $1.5 trillion. It would have been possible for the government to do everything it did in 2009 and not borrow one nickel. Not from China, not from wealthy people, from nowhere. Would have solved the problem just like that. And who would it have taxed? The people who over the last 30 years did better than everybody else. Every measure of income inequality shows that over the last 30 years, the top 1% of the people have increased their wealth way beyond what everybody else has. Endless, if any of you want the statistics, there are in fact 2 economists in Berkeley, California, one in France and one in Berkeley, Saez and Piketty, S-A-E-Z and Piketty, P-I-K-E-T-T-Y. Go to Google, look up Saez and Piketty, and that's the best research on income and wealth distribution in the United States. Somebody who has the same last name as I do, Wolff, here at NYU, is the other guy who does this kind of research. Look him up, you'll find it as well. Here's the point. The money is there, the wealth is there. Those are the ones most able to pay. That's already a principle in our tax system. They're the ones who've done best over the last 30 years. And they would have 90% of their wealth in stock still left after doing what? Being asked to contribute at a moment of national economic crisis to the well-being of the other 99% of the people who wouldn't be taxed a nickel to get this problem solved. Here's the problem, folks. What I just described to you, everybody in his or her soul already knows what I just said. They know where the money is. That's the issue. The rich and the corporations know for sure that when the excrement hits the cooling equipment, people like us are going to say, get them. Go tax the money where it is. Tax the wealth where it is. Tax the wealth where it's been accumulated. Tax the wealth that hasn't been taxed before. Tax the wealth that by avoiding taxes was able to make money by lending to the government. Get them. Stop doing it to us. Do it to them. Especially when the us is 99% and the them is 1%, which it is. For them, the most urgent thing in the world is to take all necessary steps to prevent the logic of the situation from bringing the finger to point at them. And they get served real well by our political structure. But the issue is, should we raise the taxes on the people or should we cut the services? As long as that's the debate, instead of having a debate, who's not paying, who could and should pay, we're lost. Wobbling between Republicans and Democrats is wobbling between two people who both serve the same function, to keep us away from the solution to the problem that we would all benefit from. The worst thing would be if the left, if those with a critical turn of mind were to fall for this crazy idea that we need austerity, that our discussion should be how best to share amongst us the burden of fixing our broken finances. Stop. Our finances aren't broken. We've been screwed. And unpleasant as it might be to admit it, if you don't admit it, you're complicit with it. First rule at the AA meeting, hello, I'm an alcoholic. And the first thing we have to do in the left is admit, hello, I've been had for a long time. And I'm going to get out of it by admitting it and trying to figure out what happened, why it happened, and what the alternatives are, which is what I have tried to do. Thank you very much, and let's have a discussion. I will, please bear with me, I'm going to repeat the question for the sake of the video being made. So please, comments, questions, expressions of compassion, misery, outrage, anything. Yes, sir, in the back.
Just curious, if the government did install the 10% tax on bonds and portfolios over the course of the year, would you foresee any problems arising from that, particularly like maybe the rich offloading their stocks and bonds? What would the ramifications be of them dumping all that stuff?
Okay, here's the question. If we were, hypothetically, to tax, as I propose, the high net worth individuals 10% of their portfolios, would there be consequences? What might they be, and how might we deal with them? Let me answer in two parts. First, because I could see in some of your faces, I hope I'm not misreading it, some sense that there's maybe something radical or new or something about taxing property. There isn't. We already have in the United States, and we've had for a long time, property taxes. That's the way most cities and towns finance themselves. They tax property, not income, not sales, no income tax, no sales tax, a property tax. What does that mean? In every city and town there's an office. It's called the tax assessor's office. The tax assessor's job in every city and town is to value all the properties, the land, the stores, the homes, the automobiles. And then they assign a percentage of the value of your property that you must pay each year in taxes. So the idea that we tax property is not new. It's already the truth and the reality in the United States. The only interesting thing, and it tells you a story about America much more succinctly than any research study you need to go after. In the United States, cities and towns tax land and buildings and automobiles. They do not tax property in the form of stocks and bonds. If you own a home in any town in America, you pay it, suppose it's a $100,000 home, you pay a property tax every year to the town on the $100,000 home you own. If you sell the home for $100,000 and you buy $100,000 worth of stocks and bonds, the tax you pay to the same town is zero. So we have a property tax, we just exempt stocks and bonds. Let me do that again. We exempt the property that is the major form in which wealthy people hold property. What we do tax is the form of property held by the mass of people, the homes and the land. Again, an occasion for the national anthem. So I'm just proposing that we remedy the exemption for one kind of property by subjecting it to taxes the way we already do for the others. But now this gentleman's question. Would there be a reaction on the part of corporations and the rich? I would guess so. I will put aside that they might come gunning for me. And in America, the phrase gunning for me takes on a terrible meaning. But I'll put that one aside. Here's the suggestion made by many Republicans when this kind of idea surfaces. Well, the rich people and the corporations will take their money away. If it's in New York State, they'll move to Jersey to escape the tax.